Recording. Hello everyone and welcome Maxine and Sue.
Hello.
Really lovely to be here on this Sunday afternoon in the sunshine, just having a quick moment for Maxine to really just have a chat with Sue about her artwork, because Maxine selected Sue as her winner as part of Pure ART360, really loved her work, and I thought it would be really nice for Maxine to just chat to Sue about her work and how she does it and what her inspiration is and what have you. So over to you, Maxine and Sue.
Thank you. Hello everybody, and thank you, Lesley, and lovely to meet you, Sue.
Nice to meet you too, Maxine.
Oh, bless you. So the piece of art we're talking about is a piece of art called Ballet Boys, Boys with a Z. And the reason I chose it is because I put the Ballet Boys as my #1 because it's so carefree. I want to be where he is and doing what he's doing. And it really is just this boy, and he's doing this, and he looks just so happy and carefree. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it's an interesting story. It was a program that a performance that I went to see at G Live. They previously had been in London, showing there at the, I forget the ballet company now, over in Islington. What's the name of them? It's gone. But they're a company just of men, young men, older men, and they were showing at G Live. And I knew that I was going to have to go and see them, because I paint an atmosphere, I paint dance, I paint movement, Maxine, and I couldn't think of a better place to go for inspiration. Well, it was a wonderful performance. The first performance was of the company dancing in rags, really. They looked like rags. But it was the movement, and it was very avant-garde, very different. But the choreography was very, very good. The second performance, which I haven't painted, and which I should, they were all nude. Well, they weren't nude, but they were bare from the chest down. And that was quite something. They were like swans dancing. You know how elegant swans are? They were like swans dancing together. Their movement was of one. And that was the finale. But what I liked about the first part was exactly what you said, Maxine, the freedom.
Interesting.
They were working as one in the second bit, where they were semi-nude. But in the first one, they had the rags and they were free. And I think that's what appeals to me in all my models and people I see, whether they're from musical performances, cafes, Ronnie Scott's. You get that feeling when somebody's really free and into the zone, as they say, and that's when I try and paint them, catch them.
And you know, that's exactly what I said. He is so carefree. I want to be where he is and doing what he's doing. And you've captured that. You say you paint like to paint atmosphere, and he just looks so content. And I just fell in love with it. He just looks...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I really do. And I can see the rags as well, because he looks like he's got like a piece of string tied around his waist. Oh, fabulous. So do you always paint? Do you always get your inspiration from musicals, from music, performances?
You know, I get my inspiration really from just observing and going to places that I like. I don't know what that was. Excuse me.
People always telephone you in the middle of these things, don't they?
I don't know. I can't believe that.
On a Sunday.
Guys there. But it was just absolutely...
They're now leaving a message.
Yeah. Hopefully leave a nice message.
Leave a message out there.
I just observe everybody, wherever I am. If I'm walking along the Thames, which is my favourite, if I'm at Ronnie Scott's, if I'm in New Orleans, I'm observing everybody all the time. But it's the odd quirkiness not quirkiness, it's that odd movement, that odd rush of freedom that people get. You don't always see it. You know, if you look at the funeral of Prince Philip yesterday, it was very formal. There was a lot of beauty there and a lot of emotion. I wouldn't, but there are other places that I go where I see more freedom. Do you understand the comparison I'm trying to make? There are lots of aspects of our life which have to be like that. But when we're free and jumping up and down and doing what, it probably shows the real person.
Yes. Do you, when you were saying about being, you're saying about being in New Orleans or Ronnie Scott's, do you sketch or do you photograph to record these memories?
I sketch, because when you sketch, you can do with a sketch what you can't do with a photograph. I can take a photograph, which I do because I love photographs, and if I had wanted to have another profession, I'd probably be a photographer and then a sculptor, because I'm very interested in 3D work. But with sketching, I was taught to sketch in light and dark, in tones. So you get, if I was out somewhere, I could get a very quick sketch of anywhere, any person, by doing dark and light and the shape. And then I've got what I want backed up by a photograph.
And that's really interesting. So I'm just looking at your website now and I'm on landscape. And I'm looking at a couple of pieces here. So you've got Summer Heat on the Tiber, and then you've got the one below it. There's no name for it. And it's got a Turner-esque feel to it.
Is that Sunset Over the City?
I think it just, yeah, it's in between Port in a Storm and Summer Heat on the Tiber, and it just says image. There's not a name there.
If you he should have put it. If you tap it, does a name come
right?
up?
Yeah. No, afraid not. Anyway, there's very much. There's a Turner-esque kind of style. Would you agree with that, or?
Yes, it was not meant to be, because I like Turner. I like Turner very much, but I try not to copy other artists. There was only one artist I ever copied, and probably he copied Turner, if the truth be known.
Oh, really?
But yes, it is. It's very loose. Yes,
and I can see how you've worked with the lights, and all of them actually. I mean, they're very, very beautiful. They really are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, light, I think,
Maxine.
I think working with the light and working with the negative spaces is a really interesting aspect of Sue's work, and the freedom not only in the way that she depicts the image in the painting, on the page or on the canvas when she's done it, but even the way you present them out to the world. So you're framing. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you then frame your work? How do you approach that?
Yes. Well, I think framing is very important. You need to decide how you want. You have a picture this big, or you have a picture this big. If it's a canvas, it's more. I would very rarely do an acrylic bigger than that. I have done. But could I just? I think there's an alarm going off here.
I'm just looking at a website, and there's just some lovely, lovely work there. I'm looking at the portraits and the figurative, and her
work is Sue's work is stunning, and you know, she's been making art for a long time now, a lot of years. She's very, very experienced and belongs to a lot of societies, and not only has made a lot of work herself, but you've also seen a lot of work, haven't you, Sue, by being like president of the Society of Women Artists and things like that. So all of those things we absorb into our practice, don't we? But going back to the framing, how do you approach your framing?
Well, sometimes you have to override what your framer says, because the framer will say such and such. But quite frankly, the framer meets all sorts of artists every day of his life. But Sue Jelley is not stuck in her ways, but I have certain ideas. And sometimes I'll go along with the framer and I'll think, yes, that's good. And other times I'll think, no, I wish I'd stuck to my guns. And a lot of the time, I wouldn't say that I'm the best person to think about framing. Sometimes artists, you do get into a bit of a quandary. Do we go with a big mount, a little mount, a big frame? We want what is best for our painting, but sometimes that doesn't always happen. But I was talking to Lesley earlier. If it's a water-based painting and it's going to be glazed, I really feel the mount should be at least 2.5 inches to 3 inches wide, no matter what size the painting is. I've just been to the framers yesterday, and I made a big mistake. I painted a picture to fit a frame. Instead of painting the picture, it turned out okay. So now, consequently, I've had that painting taken out of the frame and put into a frame that it should have been originally, but it's meant that I've had to use a big amount. I've had to do a little bit of jiggery pokery, but then, as I was once told, it's your painting, you can do whatever you like with it. So I've gone up to a 5-inch mount. So this painting, it can afford to take it. It's a very powerful painting, so it can afford to be surrounded by all this white. So your eyes are directly taken
into the painting.
To the painting itself.
Do you take into consideration where the painting, when you're looking at a frame, do you think about where that painting's going? Or I guess if it's in an exhibition, not. But I'm just thinking, if I was buying something for home, would I have a different opinion of the frame, possibly?
Yes, I was about to ask you that. I was going to say, how does that impact you as a collector, the framing?
Well, actually, Maxine's hit upon a very good question, actually, because once or twice, not a lot, well, I don't know, they might have changed, but once or twice, people have said, I'd like a different frame because it will fit my furniture. Now, some artists who possibly are purists, nothing to do with pure art, but
no, different thing altogether.
different, will say, some artists will say, well, you shouldn't do that, it's being too fashionable. But art is about fashion. We only have to look at what Picasso used to do in his early days and what he did in his later days. What Matisse probably did all in his life, he was slightly different. But whether we like it or not, art is about fashion.
It's about aesthetic, isn't it? It's about aesthetic
very
and
much.
taste.
Yes.
And that was something that Aristotle spoke about. And started this notion of the aesthetic and the aesthetic taste. And some artists, as you say, purists, have a framing style and they put their work into that frame regardless of where that work may end up its final home. That's their style and that's part of their art practice. And then other artists will sell their work unframed because they would rather the client make that decision. Have you bought work, Maxine, that's been unframed and had that?
Yeah, both. And I was just thinking, I personally would be led by the artist because I'd respect what they were telling me. And, if it was already framed, I would definitely have a discussion about why they'd used that frame. And I wouldn't necessarily want to change it to fit. I tend to buy a lot of my work unframed, actually, I'd prefer to get it framed. It's always a hassle getting.
You would prefer the artist to have their work framed?
I think I would, and I do buy a lot of art. I mean, this behind me.
I know, I've seen it. I've been looking at it.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, she's a fantastic artist, and I do collect quite a lot of her stuff. And the framing is very simple. And I like that as well. But I would definitely be respectful and listen to why the artist used a certain frame.
Well, Maxine, what you've just said is music to my ears. It's music to any artist's ears, because actually, if we don't take that initial step in framing our work, because we've lived with that work, sometimes for months if it's a big work, and we do take a lot of trouble in a lot of instances in framing that work. and it's a start for the buyer. And, and the buyers know that, and I am very happy if somebody says, oh, I love that, but I don't like the frame, and I can understand that. But we've made a start in the selling process, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
That's a start in the dialogue between the seller, the artist, and the collector. And everybody has a right to, and I think sometimes, I know people haven't found a frame that's better actually, but at least they've gone through that choice. But I think what you said is very valid. It's lovely, Maxine, to start. It's starting somewhere, and I think you're very brave to buy. Well, no, not necessarily brave, but I think when you've bought work that hasn't been framed, it's stood by itself. It's just wonderful.
And you know, and I find if I buy artwork that's not framed, there becomes a problem in framing it, because I don't quite know how it should look. And so I think I prefer things that are framed personally.
Yes, but also you say you don't know how it should be framed. That's a very valid point, because sometimes people will say to me, I don't know whether that will fit in my room. I don't know if I've got enough space. And my answer to that is always, even if it's a large painting, I say, look, if you like something enough, you'll find a home for it.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And they do. People do. But they just need that bit of confidence.
Yeah.
I don't think galleries sometimes help boosting the confidence of the would-be new buyer.
I think you're right. Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I mean, I'm not, you know, I collect what I collect, and I did embark on a fine art degree at 50, but I gave it up after a year because my business took off. So, but there's always this unnervedness, this kind of like, you know you're going to go into an art gallery or an exhibition, and you don't know what you're talking about sometimes. And there's sometimes a bit of snobbery around that, and I think
terrible snobbery.
Really wrong. Yeah.
Especially if you have to go and ring to be let in. You know, sometimes I think if I've got to ring in, I think, oh God, I'll go down and have a cup of coffee down by the bus stop.
Come to my bus stop.
For me, though, buying a piece of art, I always like to know the artist, because I think you get an insight, more of it. And I do like to discuss the piece with the artist. That's really important to me, but it's not important to everybody.
No.
I think it actually is becoming more important that the open studios concept was very good, and it gave people the opportunity to go and meet artists, and obviously private views are an opportunity. And when you have like the big shows at the SWA and the Mall galleries and such like, you have the opportunity, but not all the artists are always there. But what I found during this lockdown period, where we've been doing these interviews with artists and people have been able to kind of have a conversation with the artists, is the buying has been flowing a lot more. And people have been readily going, oh yeah, I'll have it.
Totally get that. I mean, looking at your website, I feel like I've had a conversation with you and I've connected with you. And I do feel that you have, for me, buying art, I have to connect. And I think everybody's different, aren't they? People buy for different reasons.
Yes.
But I definitely feel I like to have that connection.
Yeah, and to know the story.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head, if that's the right phrase, really, Maxine. They don't call it a painting, a work of art for nothing. And I agree. You want to know, I mean, it's like when we go and buy a nice dress. If it's a Chanel or a Cause, or it has a bit of a resonance, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
that it's come from a good place. Likewise, if you know the artist, you know where they've trained, what they've been doing. It's a link. It's a link. It's a professional link as well. I
think so. I mean, I'm on your website now. I'm looking at your portrait, and there's one here called Dominatrix. And now I've had a conversation with you, I totally get it. I mean, are they in an orchestra? Are they, 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 are Are they an orchestra?
Would you like to hear the story,
I'd
Maxine?
love to hear the story. She's beautiful.
Well, the Dominatrix is a saucy slant on woman power.
I get that I totally get it. You know, I totally get it.
She was a violinist that played at Ronnie Scott's many years ago. I took her out of a picture, to be honest, but I have models as well that I play around with. But the artist's in the background. She's in charge. I mean, her violin and her bow. Her bow is her whip. Well, can I say this on?
Yeah, I get it.
Yes, you can.
Her bow is her whip.
I totally
And
get it.
those artists in the background, they are actually artists. The one sitting at the piano is an artist that used to go around the restaurants in Arizona, because I had an agent in Arizona many years ago, and he was a well-known musician, and I did a lot of, and he's actually on the portrait page there with the dreadlocks. If you could, I think it's highlighted there. So here's a mini version, and all the other 2 or 3 artists I made up. Sometimes I'll make up figures, because I've done so many portraits in the past, and I just love playing around with people's eyes and noses and personalities, and all the others are made up, but they're her musicians. They're in the background for a reason, because she's in charge, and
she's holding court. She's holding court, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
I love it.
But they need her. She needs them as much as they need her.
Oh my God, I just love it. It's amazing though. I definitely got the vibe of it, and I definitely made the connection with the violin. I don't know what you call that thing.
Oh, the bow.
The bow. And made the connection between the bow and the whip as well. I absolutely think that's incredible. Honestly, I really do. Love it.
Good. I enjoyed doing that.
Female empowerment is really important, isn't it, to you, Sue, as well as to Maxine? I know that's a subject that's really important too. Female empowerment is really important, but that's something that really comes through all your work, not only in your professional practice of your painting, but also in your professional presence in the art industry, where you have been the president of the Society of Women Artists, and now you are the chair of the Painters and Stainers. No,
it's the yes, you're right. It's the Painter, Decorators and Stainers Fine Arts Society. Yes, I'm the chair.
And is that important for you to be representing women in that role as a leader in the industry?
Well, the Painter Decorators, I'm in charge of blokes now as well.
You're in charge of everyone.
Yes.
Good.
It's mixed. And the connection there is because I'm a Londoner, and I always found the history of the guilds, the London guilds. I did it at school way back, and I've always been fascinated by how the guilds would help the City of London, because I'm actually a Londoner. I was born in London, although I was brought up in Bristol. And I've just heard from it's secrets. I can't. But sorry.
Backtrack on that, because it's secret. You're not allowed to tell us. Tell us afterwards.
It's to do with national security, but because the guilds do such a lot for the City of London, I've just seen a recent bulletin that the Lord Mayor sent out to all the guilds about how they're doing much to open up the city, what they did during the pandemic, and now helping people, feeding them, organising all sorts of charitable, because they are a charity. They're charitable trusts, if you like to call them that. We offer bursaries and scholarships to art students.
And you've been calling people personally, haven't you? You've been calling people and checking in on them who are members of the society.
Of the guild, this was.
Yes.
The guild. And I do ring members of the society, although I'm not president anymore. I used to when I was president, because you must keep that. I think I rang up about 120 people, Maxine.
Wow.
They asked me if I would ask people how they were. And, do you know, all those people were so pleased and moved that somebody had actually rung them up and asked them how they were.
How lovely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
most of them were okay, but a lot were lonely. A lot weren't okay, you know. That, but it was the most heartwarming and uplifting little exercise that I've done for a long time.
Do you think that will inform your work?
People always inform my work. Different personalities. So yes, talking. It'll all go into our minds. Our brain is like a camera. Everything that happens to us, there's a little click, isn't there? And things will come out. Yes, I'll think of the guy that I rang that used to be quite important in the art world, and how he was now retired and probably a lot older than he used to be. And he, I'll think of that chap, and probably he will come out in a portrait. Yes.
Lovely.
Those ideas do come to me, which is lovely. That's part and parcel of being an artist, is being out there. It's been very difficult during the pandemic. That's why I took to painting flowers from my garden.
Thank you so much, ladies. That's been absolutely wonderful. A real lovely journey of just experiencing what really inspires you, Sue, and for us all to get to know you just a little bit better, because every time we get to know you a little bit better, your artwork becomes a little bit more alive for us.
Very much.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Very, very much. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. Thank you so much, both of you, for spending this, 30 minutes just having a little chat, and hope you both have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.